I'm going to Asia in a couple days, and this whole trip was spurred on the basis of my foot problems. And I think before I go, it would kind of be a cool idea to go into the topic and give my story, so I'm able to look back on it, if it's worked, if it didn't, and just kind of share, because I get a lot of questions, and it's a long story, and that's what I tell people to begin with, is like, my foot story is a long story. So I'm going to try to shorten this into a few minutes here. But essentially, my foot's injured. That's the primary purpose of this trip. Going to be getting acupuncture, cupping, massage therapy, and platelet-rich plasma injections, as well as maybe some chiropractic and physiotherapy while I'm overseas. Not just in Vietnam, which is the primary place, but starting the acupuncture in possibly Japan, and then going through the series through Korea. So we'll just have to see in particular, but I have appointments lined up and everything like that. But my foot story begins, I've been a runner all of my life, ran almost every single day since I was in high school, never really stretched. They would force you to stretch in cross country, but beyond that, I was not stretching, and I've always been told that my calves are really tight, could never touch my toes, didn't engage or spend much time into the stretching process. I thought it was not a good use of time. Like, I was just ready to jump into the run or whatever activity I was doing, which wasn't, that great in hindsight. Didn't really do a warm-up, things like that. So I have tight calves, overused from running, spent most of my life in Florida, spent a lot of time in flip-flops. I wasn't running in flip-flops, but I was spending a lot of my day in flip-flops. So apparently that has a lot to do with it too. And those are kind of like predisposing me to this type of injury right off the bat. And basically, I did a 30-mile hike in Washington State in early October of 2022, and which was really high stress on my feet. A lot of jumping. It was strenuous. There was a lot of difficult terrain, blah, blah, blah. The hike was called the Enchantments. I just redid it actually not that long ago. But came back, started running on it as I normally would, and I noticed there was pain where I did not have pain before. So at the time, I was working at a surgery center, and one of our doctors at the surgery center was a podiatrist. So I consulted him on an informal basis about what I should do and what I was feeling. And he gave me okay, you need to elevate, ice, rest from activity, all of the regular things. And if you do this, this, and that, and you're still having pain, then go ahead and schedule an appointment with a podiatrist that, takes my insurance, because he didn't take our insurance. So I did the things that he told me to do. It didn't work. So I went ahead and saw a podiatrist. He diagnosed me with tendinitis, lateral tendinitis and plantar fasciitis. So he put me in a boot, and this is on my left foot, by the way. So he put me in a boot for the next month. So I had that boot on. I was still able to do a stationary bike at the gym and stuff like that. So I just kind of worked within the limitations for my exercise and stuff. And after the month I took the boot off, the pain returned right away. So he's like, okay, let's do a steroid injection. Steroid injection went in. I felt like I was cured. I felt like, that was the end of that journey. Went back to running, and I thought everything was fine. A month later, pain's starting to come back. Okay, let's do another steroid injection. So he did another steroid injection. Thought I had been cured as well. And then that wore off. And at that time, I had to switch podiatrists because I had taken on a travel assignment in Virginia. So I followed up with a podiatrist in Virginia. And then she did a third steroid injection. Again, thought I was cured. Then I visited back in Florida after the assignment, was playing soccer with my niece, pain came back. And I was like, oh, I thought I had, gotten rid of this. And after that, she's like, okay, well, that's all the steroid injections we can do. Or else it puts your foot at risk, for other things, rupture and blah, blah, blah. So then she referred me to physical therapy. And then at that point, my travel assignment was over and I moved to Pennsylvania to live with my mom intermediately. And for the next 2 months, I did physical therapy for my foot. And at the end of physical therapy, the assessment showed no change. So I was like, okay. And I was doing everything like perfect. I did everything they told me to do. And the test that the evaluation showed no change. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? Well, I moved again. I moved to Virginia, but Northern Virginia, because my job was in Northern Virginia, Baltimore, and DC. Or not Baltimore, I guess, Bethesda and DC. So got essentially, I did not see a new podiatrist there. Actually, I did. I saw another podiatrist, and he did shockwave therapy on my foot. I believe I had the 6 sessions, no real change, and at that point I had an MRI, and, which did validate the initial diagnosis, severe plantar fasciitis. And he's like, well, since this didn't work, you might have like rheumatoid arthritis or something. Like, let's roll out some other things going on here because you're not presenting like a typical plantar fasciitis patient would. So then I went back to my primary to get the referral for the rheumatologist. And then she basically took another look at my MRI. I said, yeah, this plantar fasciitis is pretty severe. Like, I'm sure you're in a lot of pain. It really empathized with me. I broke down crying like I have never cried before. Just to have someone acknowledge, I could see you're in a lot of pain, even if you aren't showing it on your face. These tests are proving it, because sometimes if you're not outwardly showing pain, it's people don't believe that you're actually in pain. And especially if you're an active person and you look fit and you're still doing things to keep you fit, people undermine and estimate the pain that you're feeling internally, because everyone expresses that in their own way, especially if it's chronic, because then it becomes almost like a part of you. And I always tell people my pain in my foot is like a tapping in the back of my head. The tapping never goes away, but you learn to live with the tapping. And it just it's a complete psychological warp. So broke down crying in her office. She tests me, for rheumatoid arthritis and things. The tests come back negative. I did have an elevated inflammatory marker, which I did not explore. Because at that point, and we'll fast forward, but I lost my job. So I quit my job to be more exact, and didn't have the insurance anymore to kind of explore that route. She basically referred me to this orthopedic surgeon, and she's like, you need to go to an orthopedist, not a podiatrist anymore. Let's escalate this. So she referred me to an orthopedist, and then I saw him. He basically said, yeah, you've done everything, there is to do, blah, blah, blah. Let's get you in for surgery. So then the surgery was in, let's see, December something of 2024. And they debrided the scar tissue of my ankle. They did a plantar fascia release on my foot, tarsal tunnel injection, maybe a couple other things that I forget about right now because I've disassociated from it because it's so fucking stressful. And I was put in a knee scooter and a cast, and then the cast got taken off, and then I was upgraded to a boot and crutches for a while, and that really stunk. The knee scooter stunk. I was still working through it all. I think I only had 4 or 5 days off after the procedure before I returned to work, which wasn't enough because I was in a lot of pain. My leg was the swelling in and of itself was really, really painful. And I was just taking ibuprofen because you can't take the an oxycodone and be able to, like, work. I don't even know if that's allowed. I don't even know. So I didn't, because I wanted to, regardless, have a clear head. And like, I was basically taking care of people like in pain, whether that be mental or physical pain. Well, I was in physical and now mental pain from the injury and the recovery process, and just kind of like feeling like I needed more help, and I didn't have like as much help as I would have liked through that recovery process. And so then, you go through this period of time where you're still on crutches and you're bearing more weight on your boot. And then at some point you lose the crutches and now you're just on the boot and blah, blah, blah. It was a long process. And then they put me in an ankle brace for a while, and then I took off the ankle brace, and then I was doing just like an ankle sleeve. So it was a long process, like after the surgery. And basically they said I followed up with, I think a couple follow-up appointments before like that surgery. It was just like so stressful on me that I quit my job. I was already stressed out to begin with. I just like that was totally the cherry on top to everything that I was going through at the time. And I was just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I followed up with the surgeon a couple times. They basically told me, I was like, well, it still hurts, And they were basically telling me like, oh, you'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. It just takes time. This is a very slow healing process because it's your foot, and the further the ailment is from your heart, the circulation, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. And then they were like, yeah, it takes a full year to recover from this. And I think 6 months after the surgery, I was going hiking and everything was fine. Everything seemed fine on the hike. I was honest to the surgeon about my hiking. Didn't seem to be an issue, but overall they said it would take a full year. So, fast forward, I lose my insurance, but I did message the orthopedist. I was like, well, it has been a year now, and it still hurts. It hurts even more actually than what it hurt beforehand, because now it's not just the bottom of the foot, now it's my ankle. So I'm like confused, like, did the surgery even work, or like, was that all for nothing, and my thousands of dollars, not just for the surgery, but for the shockwave treatments, for the physical therapy out of pocket, for the damn knee scooter. The knee scooter was like a $75. You add all this stuff up, it's like upwards of probably like $5,000 out of my pocket. And the mental toll it all takes on you. And you don't realize until you're like crippled or whatever, like feeding yourself, getting yourself water, like how are you supposed to do that in crutches? Like, that's hard. I fell down the stairs a couple times. I had to visit a chiropractor because my neck was out of control from the falling. And yeah, it was just like an insane thing to go through. And I was like, oh my God, was all that for nothing? And, might have been, I'm not sure. So I kind of put it on the back burner. I was like, okay, Lauren, we're just going to suffer here for a hot minute and see what happens, and lay off the running, see if that was, if that would cure the whole damn thing if I stopped running altogether. So I did. Still had the pain. Started swimming, to get my physical activity in. Still had the foot pain. So I was like, well, fuck it. I might as well do the other stuff. But basically I made up a plan. I did my own research, and I was like, okay, well, we're not out of options completely. I was like, there is still acupuncture, there's still cupping, there's still the massage therapy, there's still injections they can do for me. And it's much cheaper to be able to do that overseas with the money, the cash I do have, and get another set of MRIs to see, what's going on, and another opinion on the whole deal. So that's essentially what I'm doing. In the meantime, while I was just in Daytona maybe a month ago, I saw yet another podiatrist and had a reevaluation. It's like, okay, might as well while I'm here. And he basically said, he looked at me and said, there's no hope. He said that whatever pain, he's like, you've done everything you can do. He's like, that's it. He's like, will you run again? No. He's like, he basically told me to just put that off the option list for the rest of my life. And he's like, whatever pain you have, he's like, you're probably gonna have that pain the rest of your life. And he like he did. He took away every single ounce of hope I had in those moments. And he's like, no, I'm not going to bullshit you. This is how I feel. This is my opinion. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, the idea of running being taken away from me the rest of my life was one thing. But the idea of living with this tapping in the back of my head for the rest of my life was another thing. And I was like, oh my God. And I had myself another good cry in the car after that appointment. And it was like, when you have that type of cry, when someone's taken away every ounce of hope for you, it's just like I don't know, hard to explain, a catharsis of sorts. The life is just been drained from you. And like, what am I supposed to do, crawl in a black hole? I don't know. So I was like, it took me a couple of days to kind of recuperate from that. And I was like, no, you're not going down easy, Lauren. You're smart. You can research things. There's other opinions. This guy is not the end all be all of medical practitioners. I was like, he doesn't get to say that you aren't going to run the rest of your life. He doesn't get to say that you're going to have this pain the rest of your life. He's not the end all be all, Lauren. And I just came to the conclusion. I was like, I know I'm smart. And I was like, I got to do my own digging. I was like, I'm going to, and I just decided in that moment that I was just going to keep on fighting for myself, because I am worth fighting for. And if nobody's going to fight for me, then I'll fuck it. I'm going to fight for myself. And, so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. In a couple of days, I'll be going overseas, and the process will be getting started, and we'll see what happens. Don't know what note to leave this whole thing on, but that's kind of my story thus far. And I'm going into it with an optimism, a cautious optimism, but an optimism that I believe in myself. I believe that I can get through this. Whatever the outcome is, I believe I can get through it.